So here's a question for you. Have you ever felt like you have nothing left to give? You're at the end of your rope and you have just enough energy maybe to take one more step, but beyond that, you can't make any promises. In a very trivial way, I could say I've ran short races and you're like, I can't take another step. I've survived childbirth, like with my first one, I remember thinking, I'm not gonna be able to push again. And then you do, right? I've survived divorce. And all of these things, I'd say, have allowed me to relate to that feeling of I don't have anything left to give. What if God asked you to take that step and instead of benefiting you, it was for someone else? Would you be able to do it? Would you be able to give out of your need and not just your surplus? The first reading from today's Mass is from the first book of Kings, chapter 17. In verse 14, it says, "For the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the jar of flour shall not go empty, nor the jug of oil run dry until the day when the Lord sends rain upon the earth." This story, it's heartbreaking, but very affirming. Elijah encounters this widow and her son, and they're the victims of a great famine. She and her son are literally about to eat their last meal. And Elijah approaches her and asks her for water and bread. And she says, I have this oil and this flour, and I was about to prepare our funeral meal. Like literally, she calls it her funeral meal. Like this is her last meal. And he tells her, well, first make me something. And don't be afraid. And she does it. She obeys. If I only had one meal left, if this was it for me and my children, I don't know if I could have done what she did. I would wonder if maybe, okay, but if I keep this meal, if I can have this meal, maybe this meal will sustain us until some miracle happens. But she doesn't. She gives to Elijah. And that sacrifice that she makes, her act of obedience is the miracle. And it shows God that she's faithful. So where might God be asking you to put your trust in him? Might God be asking you to give from your need? It's not always financial. It's not always something tangible like a meal. Sometimes it's emotionally. Like as a mom, sometimes I feel like I'm frazzled emotionally. I don't have much left to give, but I have to pour into my kids. Maybe you're caring for an elderly relative, a parent, and you have to give and give to them. You're in the point of just being in need, and God asks you to give. We'll pray today that we'll all be faithful in those moments.